Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd really appreciate it. We have Fallon Brinson on the podcast. She's an IFBB pro. She's also the 2017 NBC Nationals overall women's bodybuilding champion. She's a women's physique competitor as of now, and she's coming to us all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Fallon, thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's great. My first podcast. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Well, before I ask you about your journey, I got to ask, how did they come up with the name Fallon? Is there a story behind that?
Oh yeah, my mom was so I'm biracial, I'm half black, half white, and my mother watched Dynasty all the time. So I don't know if anybody knows, it was on with Falcon's Crest and stuff. And there was a young lady on there that had long black dark hair, and so she would sleep with a picture of her under the pillow to just hoping that I would come out with her hair, and it turned out pretty good. So we're good. But yeah, that's where she got the name Fallon.
That's awesome. Yeah, because when I was googling, I typed in Fallon. Jimmy Fallon was like the first thing that all of a sudden come up, and I was like, yeah, I got to do something else. And so yeah, I was like, yeah, that's a really unique first name. But so why don't you give us a little bit of your backstory? What really inspired and what really motivated you to get in shape and adapt that healthy and fit lifestyle? What's your backstory?
So I had an opportunity with an energy drink company, and they said, "Oh, we need you to look a little bit more in shape. Like we need you to have nice abs and stuff like that." So initially, I started working out because of that. There was a coach that coached all of their girls and did kind of like a workout with us, and that's how I met my coach. And I got into the gym, and he babysat me, man. He had me do split routines and stuff like that until I was familiar with all the equipment. And I tell everybody, like, I mean, whatever it is, you got to start somewhere. I didn't start knowing all of this stuff. I mean, I literally would walk in with my piece of paper from my coach, and I was trying to match the machinery on this that I Googled to that, because I had to look up these exercises that he had me do, because it was a long distance coaching thing. So you start somewhere, and he babysat me. He had me do that. Then he added nutrition on top of that, which was always at the forefront of everything that we did, and then cardio on top of that. So it was just a baby step and a transition. And I eventually chose not to go with the energy drink company, but he said, why don't you start competing? Let's look at that. And so I went to a show, and that was it. I mean, I was like, I can do that. And it was what got me started and everything. It was great.
Well, and everyone always talks about too that when they first go to the gym, if there's 100 people in it, I mean, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape. Whether it comes down to your diet, your nutrition, how many reps you do, what exercises you do. I mean, there's so many little things that add up to the overall package that people end up seeing. Was that a struggle for you figuring out what worked best for your body when you were getting started? Because I always say, if you were to walk up to someone and say, what'd you do for that body part? It looks amazing. What works best for them 99% of the time is not going to work as good for you.
Oh, absolutely. And finding out what works for you. So I was very fortunate in that I had a coach from the very beginning, right? So he really helped educate me and bring me along as to what works and what doesn't work. And of course you try things and they don't work, and they do. But once you find that thing that works, if it's not broke, don't fix it, guys. So, everybody wants to be bigger and better and so on and so forth. But when you find that combination and that formula that works for you, you stick with it. And of course, there's been, things that have happened. My body's changed along the way, but I'm very fortunate in that I had a really great coach that just, he knew exactly, he knew what to do, and he never stressed about things. I would stress all the time, and he didn't stress, man. And he's just really good at what he does. So
I mean, I can never preach enough, how important it is to have a coach when you get started. So many people just talk about how it helps them out so much. So, I mean, I cannot stress that enough. But one of the fun questions that I love to ask, because everyone's genetics are different. So when you were getting started in the gym, what was one body part that really, really took off? And what was one body part that really lagged behind? I mean, I'll give you mine first. So, I mean, my back, from doing all these jobs in college where it was loading and lifting heavy things in warehouses, I have a very, very good back, but I'm also 6'3". So, I mean, my legs are just absolutely shot, where, I mean, every time I go to the gym, I try to get at least a little bit of something legs in, even if it's just a little bit of cardio, but I still train legs, hard twice a week. And still, it's so hard for me. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
the thing that just does it, they're so stubborn, are my legs, man. They are just, I gotta work the heck out of them, and I gotta I got to eat to feed them, man, because they refuse to grow and to cooperate with me sometimes. My two easiest were my biceps, triceps, arms have always been. I had arms even when I was real little, so that and my back just it just grew, and I love working my back. So that's probably why, they say when you love to work something, that's probably going to be your best feature, and that's totally true in my case. I love working my back, so it's one of my best body parts.
Can you give us a front double bicep? Because your arms are just absolutely popping out of the screen right now.
Absolutely.
Just hold that for a second. Everyone, that's not even fair. That's not even fair. I mean, that's just honestly what 4 years of hard work and dedication really do for it. So yeah, and I mean, just finding those body parts. I mean, I always say for me, my calves are just, one of those things where I just look at someone with nice calves and I was just like, good God. I mean, you don't work them. It's all genetic. So that is definitely one thing for me where I'm just like, oh, I just wish, I always said I could inject pure muscle into my calves and they wouldn't grow an inch. So, yep,
I'm with you
unfortunately.
there. I totally have calf envy. I look at somebody with calves, I'm like, I have to work them a lot too. I mean, anything in my lower body extremity is it's stubborn.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more on that. When you were getting into bodybuilding, did you have any apprehensions about doing a show, or was it just one of those things where once you, like you said, once you went to that show and realized, like, hey, I could do this, or was there any thought in your mind of like, is this something that I want to do, or were you always just all in?
Oh, absolutely. I think everybody, especially women, I mean, men, women alike, but in this industry, it's so subjective, right? So there's so many times that you get knocked down, and you really got to get back up with that. And it's just as much of a mental game as it is physical, because there's so many times when you're told no, 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 this you're not good enough quite yet, or come back and change this. So yeah, of course, there's always a struggle, and everybody has that. I think women a little bit more so than men. This is definitely a selfish sport, so come that last 4 weeks, you're just really low on energy, and you're not eating a bunch of carbs. You're doing a lot of cardio and stuff like that. So yeah, of course, there's that. There's that switch that turns on. It's kind of a little bit self-defeating. You have doubts and everything, but then you get up on stage, and it's like everything comes down to that one day, and it's like I've worked so hard for 12, 16 weeks, and here I am. So yes, everybody has that little bit of self-doubt, I think, and you just take that hit and you get right back up, and it's all about being resilient, and that really is what being a professional at what you do is, right?
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I always say, if you were to poll the general public, you would get such a small singular percentage of people that would be willing to go up on stage and pose in a bikini in front of people. I mean, it takes such determination and courage to go up and do that. Was that something that you feared at all and that you really had to work at mentally to be able to say, like, hey, I can go up and I can do this?
Oh, absolutely. I didn't have like yeah, my confidence, I was like, and that's again, I give all of the credit to my coach, because he's a very big believer in practice makes perfect, right? So the more you practice your routine, the more you practice posing, even though you don't want to, even when you're tired, even when you have nothing left, that right there makes so much of a difference. I find that when I go into a show and I'm 100%, I've done my posing, I've done my routine, and I don't have anything left to give, that's when I perform at my best. And I mean, when I overall nationals, just an hour and a half before that, I was downstairs. We were practicing my posing, and the poses that I would do for the pose down if I had won, and so when all of that culminates and comes together, it makes for such a great experience, and that's really what you want when you're competing in a show. It's amazing.
Oh, absolutely. Just what happens on that stage and just that magic that a lot of people talk about, they feel is, I mean, it's indescribable. And I've been on stage, well, being a pitcher, I can kind of understand it, but I don't really get, exactly what that is like. But it just, I mean, just and from what I've inferred from all these people that I've had on, I mean, it's just such an undescribable feeling. But also, if you were to poll the general public, most people don't realize that just to be able to get into shape to be able to go on a prep takes so much hard work and dedication that 99% of the public would not be able to do it. But going on a prep, that is notching things up to an extreme level where, I mean, your diet has to be perfect. Your training, you cannot miss a workout. I mean, everything just becomes so scientific. What was that like, your first prep, just really adjusting to that really regimented lifestyle that you have to go under?
I think the first prep is the hardest, right? So that's where you really and throughout every prep you learn something new, right? And you add something that you didn't do before. So learning how to get all of my meals in and doing work and making sure that other people were good with their programs and stuff like that, it can get really, really hectic. To bring your body to an extreme like we're doing when we're on stage, you have to do something extreme, right? So you have to do things that other people are not willing to do, and your body's going to fight you. It's like, no, I'm good. I want to maintain homeostasis. I don't want to go any further. Like, what are you doing? And so it took a minute. It took a minute, and I'm still not perfect at it. They give us this pro card, and they go, and people automatically think, oh, she's perfect. She's got all her workouts. She journals. She never skips a meal, and that's not true at all. I mean, we're all human. So I still get things wrong, and my coach still gets on to me. He's like, Fallon, you can't have that tablespoon of peanut butter before you go to bed. Not on the meal plan. Stop it. So it's learning every single time and trying to strive to do things better each time that you do it, and getting to that hopefully grandeur of being in the Olympia or in the Arnold or something like that. So
Well, and so many people just don't realize that for a lot of these competitors, the mental game is so much harder than the physical game. I mean, just the changes that you make to your body, like you said, I mean, that could be a lot easier than your mind basically saying like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like the body just doesn't feel right at times. And you really just have to be so mentally strong. Has that impacted other aspects of your life too as well? Just the mental strength that it takes to compete in bodybuilding? Has that helped you in other aspects of your life? Just knowing that you do have that strength in the mind that can really give you an advantage over other people in certain situations?
Well, I think that their definition there's one thing that all successful people have in common, right? They're all resilient, and they can all take a hit and get back up. So when you can overcome that mental, like go to the gym and work out, when your body will keep going before your mind will. Your body will tell you stop, quit. You just press the snooze button. You don't want to do that. So yeah, definitely. I just recently started my own business and started a career at Lifetime Fitness, which is it's building your own business from the ground up, and I have no experience at that. And so day after day going in there and speaking to people and doing this whole thing, it does give me one up, I think, because even if I don't have a good month, or even if I didn't do this right, I can get back up and I can do it next time. And I don't have the fear is much less now than it was before I competed. I'm not stagnant now.
What would you say was the biggest nutritional change you've made from before you started bodybuilding into now?
Oh, I used to. Okay, so I started off skinny, right? So I was teeny tiny, and then I got bigger. So I did not really care about my nutrition at all. I mean, it's amazing the transformations that's happened. I tell anybody, if I can do it, you can do it, because I was eating Ben and Jerry's every night before I went to bed, and it was fine because I was small, but I was skinny fat. So just eating. I mean, prepping my meals and stuff like that. I went from taking 4 hours to prep my meals, to now it takes me about 2 hours on the weekend, and I'm good. But that was huge. I mean, and having to eat my meals even when I wasn't hungry. I didn't get that mechanics behind it. But as you get educated and you learn how the metabolism works, and I had a mentor, like I always tout my coach Mitch Priest, because he educated me throughout the whole process. And I saw how he did things with his competitors, and not just competitors, but with everyday people. And I really try to emulate that, because I saw that as a wonderful business model, And so, but I tell anybody, it just baby steps. You do a little bit here, a little bit there, and maybe make one home cooked meal. And then that culminates and it becomes a lifestyle. And that's what you want. You don't want that temporary diet. You want that lifestyle change.
Oh yeah, like baby steps is one thing that I hear of here on the all the time, because like they always say it's like 80 to 20% nutrition to the working out, or even 90%. I mean, for some people, it's just such an important thing that so many people don't really talk about. But one of the big myths and stereotypes that I do love to talk about on this podcast, I love to ask this to every single health and fitness guest that I have on, because I always say it's gotten better the last 5 years because of Instagram, but there's still such a significant amount of women still that have that fear where if they go into the gym and they touch one weight, they're just going to hulk out and put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight. Did you have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't, I mean, I bet you still hear that all the time. How do you like to respond to that?
I totally had that fear because, like I said, I was small. So I still remember distinctly my coach sending me this picture of this girl, and she was just a bikini, competitor. But I was like, oh, that's too big for me. That's too big. I don't want to be that big. So I can definitely oh, what's the word? Sympathize. I can relate with that fear because I thought the same exact thing. And me being so big and working in a fitness industry now, well, not so big, but me being as defined and bigger than most women are comfortable with wanting to get, I have to be like extra bubbly and extra, extra like, listen, this isn't where you are. And somebody, one of my mentors at work, she always says, I'm going to meet you where you are and take you where you want to be. And if that's not where I am, that's perfectly fine. We can get you there. So definitely a very big fear. I have a lot of women that come up to me and tell me, oh, I don't want to look like you. And I'm like, it's okay. It took me 4 years. You won't look like me,
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's okay, you
So
won't. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And when I always love to tell the story of when I was getting bigger and stronger in college, one of my really good friends, she came up to me and said, like, Ryan, I see that you're making all these changes and I want to work out with you, but I'm just afraid I'm going to get too bulky. And I told her, look, the amount of weight that you carry in your purse when we go out to clubs or when we go out to get something to eat weighs more than 90% of the dumbbells in the gym. She had a purse that weighed like 25 pounds. So I was like,
wow.
you're lugging that thing around. And I was like, and you're complaining about going to the gym and working out. So it was one of those things where when she went into the gym and started doing that and just seeing that that's not true at all. And just like what we were talking about before, it's just about taking that first step in there and just realizing that, like, hey, that's not going to happen at all. But sort of going off that question, I mean, I always say that this impacts women so much more positively than it does guys. It's the confidence boost that you get from working out. I mean, I always say there's some guys that walk into the gym like they own the place and, first of all, give me that confidence. But second of all, I
Yes.
mean, especially for women, just that overall confidence boost where sometimes they talk about, like some of our guests have talked about, like how they feel more assertive. They're more, they stick up for themselves a little bit more. How has that confidence boost from working out impacted your day-to-day life? Because I always say that is the one thing that you can take from the gym and really use it for every single aspect of your life. How have you used that confidence boost to better your life?
Um, I think through just on a day to day, just getting compliments and stuff like that, and being able to really, I mean, I used to always, and I didn't notice it, and I didn't know it, but I used to walk with my head down, and being able to look people in the eye and be proud of who I am whenever I look in the mirror it's amazing, and that started from there, and that's really changed my life because I didn't know that being able to look at somebody eye to eye was just that's a huge human connection and interaction. And it tells a lot about being confident. And I'm so excited that like now I can hold my head up and when somebody asks me what I do or how I compete, I'm able to tell them with a smile on my face and with so much life and happiness in my voice and excited. And that's what it's done for me. It's amazing.
Does that ever annoy you when people ask you if you compete when it's like you clearly do?
No, I tell no, sometimes it depends on what mood you're in,
Yeah.
You sometimes you go, "No, I sit on the couch and eat bonbons
Yeah.
and binge watch Game of Thrones." That's what I do. But yeah, I mean, some people are like, "Oh, I've had people come up to me and squeeze my arms like, "Oh, you're a woman," and yes, yes,
Yep.
I am. Thank you. I have hair, long hair.
Yep.
But yeah, it's funny. But there are a lot of good looking women out there though that don't compete,
Yeah.
and they just look awesome in the gym and they work just as hard. And the kudos, man.
Yeah, we've had a few of them on the podcast too. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I also had that problem when I was in college. I was a little bit bigger than I am now. Ever since I got that 9 to 5 or that 40-hour a week job, it's been a little bit harder to keep up in the gym. But I still remember being at bars where I was wearing a little bit of sleeveless shirts, and women would just come up and without even asking, just start feeling my arms, just be like, "Oh my God, Becky, come check out this guy's arms." And I was like, let's be honest, I was vain back then, so I'd pump it up a little bit for him a couple of times. But yeah, those are the college days. So yeah, I totally understand that, but I also just, I mean, let's be honest, I'm one of the palest people you'll ever meet in your entire life. I mean, I always say that being from the upper Midwest, the sun is not my friend. That's my Norwegian roots that have basically guaranteed a life of living in isolation in a cave, basically. So I've never been tan a day in my life. I either get burnt to an absolute crisp or I get farmer's tan, well, let's be honest, that's not a real tan. So I always got to ask all of the bodybuilders that we have on, what is that experience like getting that tan? Because we always hear stories about, like you see muscles that you never even knew that you had. Everything really seems to pop out. What is that like for you when you get to see that vast change that happens when you get that tan on?
Oh man, I think the best time is that day of prejudging, right? Where you've put everything in, you're nice and tan, and you wake up in the morning and boom. I mean, it's like you have obliques and feathering in your stomach that you never saw before. And oh my gosh, I have a hamstring and glute tie-in, and this is great. That I mean, it makes you want to take video and pictures, and that's you hold on to that forever. You're like, I looked like this, you know? That's so amazing. Because it's funny because it's not one of those things that are immediate gratification. You work hard for 12, 14 weeks, and before that, even in your preseason and in your off season, and you don't see anything, and that's what's so exciting is you're like, oh, I see it now. This is what I worked so hard for. And yeah, you show it off all you can. I mean, right after a show, I'm carved up and everything, I'll wear short shorts and wear me some heels. And yes, I got legs. You see them? They're Tina Turner style right here. I'm excited.
That's awesome. And I always say the one of the negative things though is that you basically have to become a statue though too when you have that tan on. You can't sit on anything, you can't lean against anything, you can't really touch anything. Like I always say, you basically become like a human art exhibit because you can't really move and people are just looking at you funny, like why do they look like that? But yeah, that's one of the things that I always love to talk about. And you have to bring like your own bed sheets and stuff like that. And I did not know. I'm not gonna go into it, but I did not know how that was applied, and that you're in a room with other people and that they might not be wearing all their clothes. I did not know that until like the first guest that I had on told me that, and I was like, you're lying, right? I was like, there's no way there's no way that that's true. And then they're like, and then every other guest came on and was like, yeah, that's totally true. And I was like, okay, that takes a lot of, I mean, at least you get to know your competition really well then, I guess. So
Well, yeah, but it's also, I mean, that's where that mental thing
Mhm.
comes in too, because that messes with you because you see all of your competitors just butt bare naked, and you're like, oh my gosh, look at her glutes, or
Yeah.
look at her arms, or I need stuff like that.
Yep.
And yeah, definitely, that was the most uncomfortable part. Screw being on stage and stuff. That was nothing compared to having. They're like, okay, just strip off all your clothes. Let's get in this tent and let's. I'm like, really? Oh, what? And then stand in front of a fan, and you're
Mhm.
just standing there like this with like five other women. You're like, hey, what's up? How you doing? Yeah.
Looking good. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, it's like,
I couldn't imagine that, and that's one of those things that has really, really shocked me. But other than that, because obviously nothing can really shock me more than that, the one other thing that really, really shocked me, and I think it would shock the general public too, is that so many people don't realize that for these competitors, posing is the hardest thing for them. For a good majority of them, it's harder than your working out, it's harder than your nutrition. I mean, so many people don't realize that. And now that I've been more informed about it, I like to compare it to being a perfect driver, where you can be a great driver, you can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser, you can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What has your experience with posing been like? Was it something that you really had difficulty with when you got started, and you've adapted to it better, or what was the process like for you?
oh yeah, oh man, that's posing is the hardest for me. It's so difficult because well, first off, you have to take all these videos and set your phone up and stuff because you can't see yourself in the back, and all this. But also, I'm not by nature a dancer or a stage presenter, and you really have to have that stage presence and that confidence and everything when you step on that. And the only way to do that is to practice your poses, and you have to be so fluid. Everything needs to go together, and so on and so forth. So I really, like my Achilles heel. I can work out all day, I can do cardio, but posing is so difficult. And I mean, that's a good workout too. I mean, because a lot of coaches, they'll say, okay, no evening cardio, you work on posing for 45 minutes, and that is a workout. I mean, you're sweating, and it's really difficult. It's much more of an art now. Now at the Arnold, since they started actually grading posing and stuff like that. But even back in the 1980s, where you saw all the bodybuilders, that was an art. And that was the best part of the show, was that you got to see your favorite person, Frank Zane, or whoever, come out and pose, and they did it so beautifully. So I like that it's getting back to that, and that they're putting more importance on it, because I think it's an important part of the sport.
Is there a difference between bodybuilding posing and physique posing at all?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. In bodybuilding, everything is closed fist. And in in women's physique, it's open.
Mhm.
So instead of here, you're here because they want things to look a bit more feminine. And then your side chest pose is different. Besides that, there's really not that much of a difference. I didn't find that there was that much of a difference or that different of posing, but those are the two that are really different. And you're really trying to flex everything really hard. I find whenever I'm doing bodybuilding, I'm like, it's like a whole different persona that I have.
Do you
In
find
terms
that
of,
your arms get bigger when you do to the closed fist as opposed to the open fist? Do you find that it's harder to still get like that natural pop in it as opposed to the closed fist?
yeah, my coach is is an old bodybuilder, right? So he tells me, close fists and then open them to make sure maintain that peak, right, on your bicep.
Because I was gonna say, I see some people doing like that. And it's like they clearly it's just like a straight line, like it doesn't have a peak or anything. And I was like, that might be why, because when you're just like doing it like that. So yeah, that's always an interesting thing that really has just fascinated me because so many people they think that the physique poses are just exactly like the bodybuilding ones because they say physique is the new bodybuilding. But yeah, there are some differences. But now, what is your favorite physique pose and what is your least favorite physique pose?
My least favorite physique pose is that abdominal and thigh. I have a naturally wide waist, and so I do not like the way that that makes me look. My two favorites are the side chest. I love that pose just because I love uh, how feminine it looks on everybody. I mean, if you do that pose right, it looks so pretty. And then, of course, back double bi
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
I love my back.
Yeah.
So I got like you have to accentuate what you have and what's good,
Mhm.
and that's my strong suit. So
I was gonna say the ab pose for the physique compares that we had on is the most famous one for the least favorite, and I because it just looks weird. I mean, it just doesn't look natural when you're doing it. And it's like they got to find a different way to make it look like it just looks like you're trying too hard too. Like when you do it too, it's if you're trying to make it look effortless, it's like then don't have them be like that. Yeah, I don't know how they could fix it, but yeah, they got to find out something.
yeah, some new wave of femininity because it's just definitely not a feminine pose on anybody. I mean, there are certain women that just make it look great. To me, Dana Lynn Bailey, of course, makes everything look amazing. But yeah, on me, it's just not one of my favorites.
I totally can understand. Well, and the back pose too. You don't have to be, smiling the entire time too. You can kind of let your face down a little bit,
Yes.
and just not be grinding, like not be trying to like grind your teeth basically to a pulp because that's basically what I would be doing. But how hard of it is that? Because so many people don't realize you have to like be smiling. You can't just be like grunting the entire time that you're flexing. Is that taking an art form to just control your face and not show that like you're really just straining yourself?
Yeah, and you have to practice how you're going to perform. So you practice how you're gonna present, and I again, do as I say, not as I do, kind of thing. I think everybody has their weak spots. I especially on my ab and bicep, I always, and then sometimes I'll catch myself in that pose when I'm on stage and I'm breathing out. So yeah, you have to control your face. There's so many things to be mindful of when you're on there. And that's what makes it a sport is people are like, oh, you're going up on stage and you're just doing these poses. And, but what makes it that sport is being up there for 3 minutes and having them twist and turn you and switch places and you're still smiling and you're not shaking in your pose and stuff like that. And that's what that's what sets you aside. That's what the sport is really, that's what it's about.
I've always said we've heard so many stories about people after the show the next day they just wake up and they're just more sore than they've ever been just from all that posing that you have to do. But a question that I ask all of my guests on the podcast, whether they be my musicians, my health and fitness people, or any other type, for my bands, I always ask what is that feeling like performing live in front of hundreds of thousands of people? That also applies to the bodybuilders. What is that feeling like when you get to go on stage and show off all that hard work that you've worked months upon months on?
That was just a totally surreal feeling for me. Being an adult, that was probably the greatest achievement in my adult life was overalling that the NPC and getting my pro card. I didn't even hear them call my name the first time. I was because I just you're not, I mean, you're so there, but seeing all those people, the good part is from the stage that at the evening show, they kind of lower the lights. So you can't really see too many people. So that's great for me because I'm like, picture them all naked. But it's an amazing feeling. I can't even put words to it because it's just so incredible. I've never experienced that. And you get this jittery and it's this excitement and this high from it. I haven't experienced anything else that's quite like it. So
Yeah, I mean, and I always say everyone just find that in your life because I mean, we're on this planet for such a short amount of time. Just find what makes you feel like that and just stick with it. I mean, it doesn't have to be bodybuilding, and even with like working out, when everyone talks about like all these ways to work out, weightlifting might not be your thing. I mean, I have friends that do yoga and they love it and they just do it. I mean, it's like find what really helps you and makes you healthy and just go with it. But yeah, for bodybuilding, I mean, I could not imagine what that must feel like just winning that overall. That must have just been such a great moment. But one of the fun questions that I like to ask, what is your go-to post-show meal?
post show meal. Oh man, I probably pizza and cake. I love me some chocolate cake. And I will, at that point, I haven't had sugar in forever. So give me sugar. I'm very real addiction to sugar. But pizza, I love a good pizza.
What kind of pizza is your favorite?
Oh, Marco's Pizza. Do you guys have Marco's there?
No, I've never heard of Marco's, no.
Oh gosh, it's so good. It's so fresh. I really love it. But pan crust too. I want all the calories and fat. Just give it all.
Yep.
That's what I go for.
I always said if I ever competed, I would just take $1,000 and I would rent out a Five Guys for a night and just say, here's $1,000. I'm buying you out for the night. Just feed me until I either throw up, pass out, or die. Either way, I'm getting my money's worth. That's what I would do if I competed. But one of the most important questions I think that I love to bring up on here, and I mean it's another myth. I've had so many friends come up to me and say, Ryan, I like watching your podcast. It's really fascinating, but I'm so shocked that these people, they aren't able to have that stage look 24/7 because I think the general public doesn't realize that is not a sustainable look that you guys have when you go on stage through all of the manipulations that you've done through all the working out, through all the dieting, cutting water or cutting all these other things like towards the end. Like you're not going to be able to maintain that look, and so many people don't understand that because I think a lot of people have that mindset kind of like with weight loss, where if someone loses 100 pounds and they're able to keep it off, just if they still stay healthy, where they think the same thing with bodybuilding, where it's like if you look like that, as long as you just keep that lifestyle, you should be able to maintain that. But that is not the case. What was that like for you when you first realized that, like all this hard work and all this effort that I put onto this look on stage, I am not going to be able to keep it? Because we have so many people that talk about, like they might get a little depressed or a little down when they realize that, like this is the best I'm going to look for a while. What was that like for you?
I still struggle with that because you want that look all the time. And being a woman, like, oh man, that's such a good feeling for everything to pop and for you to be so lean and stuff like that. So I was one of those. I didn't. It was devastating for me to go back to being normal. I'm like, I've been super normal, like superhero for a whole 24, 48 hours. And now I'm going back to being normal again. And I'm not going to see everything. But that's where we really got to, I mean, you can do it. It's just not healthy, right? And above all in this industry, and if you want to keep continuing to compete, you got to stay healthy. So, having a little bit of fat on your body and having water and so on and so forth and having that little bit of weight, it's just a healthy thing to do. Can you stay lean? Yes, you can stay lean. But that lean, it's not good for your organs. It's not good for your body. It's not even really good for your mental state because the clarity in your brain, you're not able to, put things together like you do whenever you have carbs as an energy source. So,
I can honestly remember, I'll give you her name afterwards. I won't mention it on here, but we had a physique competitor who was at 2% body fat when she did her show. And I was like, okay, yeah, good luck maintaining that then. Yeah, but she was all cool about it. Like, she's like, oh yeah, I know I can't. But I was like, just think about trying to maintain that, where she was like 150 pounds. So that means she was 3 pounds of fat on her body, and that's it. It's like,
yeah.
and I even took a look at her and I was like, okay, yeah, I couldn't even find an ounce of fat. I mean, it's just absolutely mind boggling what that can entail. And, I mean, and I always say it's just like starting a business. Well, you should know this now. It's like you got to spend money to make money. You got to put on weight if you want to put on muscle. I mean,
Yes.
that's just something that has to happen.
Yeah, and that's important to know too. So, especially for all these women that think, oh, I'm going to lift a weight and I'm going to get, I'm going to get all this muscle and stuff like that. There are certain things that have to happen in order for you to gain muscle, right? So you have to be at a caloric surplus. You have to lift hard. You have to lift heavy. And you have to spend abnormal amounts of time in the gym that people, normal people on their day to day just don't have the time to do that. And so, but lean muscle is the more lean muscle you have on your body, the less body fat percentage you have. And that's just the science of it. That's a fact. That's how it is. So having that little bit, you don't have to have huge amounts of it. And the normal everyday person can do this little by little. You don't have to be in a caloric surplus, to just do it little by little, but to put on, the amounts that we want to put on as competitors in a short amount of time. that's how it's done.
Oh, I mean, I couldn't agree more with that. And just, I mean, the general public, I think they idolize the bodybuilders and they think that that's a sustainable look. Where, I mean, it's just if anyone watches this podcast, just be like, you don't realize the amount of stuff that you would have to do in order to maintain that look and just pull it off. Where just the hard work and dedication alone, I mean, is just so mind boggling. But two of the questions that I love to ask also every health and fitness guest that I have on, for the first one, there were so many positive things for me that happened when I started going to the gym and working out, a lot more than I normally did in college. But one of the negatives is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're gonna get asked to open a lot of pickle jars. I mean, I'm still at home with my parents for the next few months before I move out, and every single time they bring home groceries, I basically have to lift the car into the driveway and carry in the groceries. Has that been a similar experience with you, where people just assume that you can do favors for them?
At work they just assume that you can move the equipment and everything. I'm like, do you know how heavy this
Yeah.
is? I can't move this. So yeah, they just automatically assume that you can do stuff. What's the worst is when you go to like for instance, I want to try out something new and I'll go to like kickboxing or something. And man, I went to an MMA kickboxing thing and they put me in this like moderate. I'm like, listen, I'm a beginner. I don't do cardio. I want you to know this from the very beginning. Put me in. I want a beginner stuff. No, you're good. We can put you in the intermediate. You're just fine. I about died. Okay, no, I cannot do that many burpees. My body was not made for that. And so yeah, people definitely do that, and I'm like,
Yeah.
stop it. This is aesthetic training. There are people that are 115 pounds that are stronger than I am in the gym, because there's a very big difference between aesthetic training and strength training. And so it's just a different kind of training.
I always say the guest that I hated the most, I mean, she was 5 feet tall and she was a power lifter, and her bench press was 5 pounds more than my best bench press. And I was like, I am 15 inches taller than you and probably got a good, like 40 pounds on you. And you're still out bench. So yeah, that was absolutely, and I mean, just proves it. Cause like there always are those people that walk into the gym where you're like, do they even lift? And the next thing you know, they're benching like 300 pounds and you're like, holy crap. What is that? So yeah, that's one thing too, that a lot of bodybuilders get to, where people just assume that, like they're just these superhumanly strong people, where it's like, you might want to go to the power lifters if you want to talk to like superhumanly strong. No, granted, there are some bodybuilders that we have had on that are freakishly strong, like really, really strong. Like we had Katie Lee on, and she is just like a monster when it comes to working out. But
Oh
yeah,
yes.
yeah, it's
Yeah, I
very
watched
rare.
her podcast with Katie Lee. I was like, "Oh, it's Katie Lee." She
Yeah.
beat me. She beat me in Junior Nash or Junior USA's. But I think it was my second national show or something. And I talked to her, and she was just like, "Don't give up. Don't quit. You just take the advice, come back, and do another thing." But yeah, I watched her workout on her workouts on Instagram, and I'm like, "Woo, girl, okay, do you?"
Her arms are like the most insane thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Oh,
They're
absolutely.
ridiculous. I was like, I don't know like how that's possible. But yeah, she's the one guest too. And I was like, that's just incredible. But I mean, and another thing to me that I really didn't expect that really came, you're gonna get asked to arm wrestle all the time too.
Oh,
Oh my
yeah,
god. Oh my
mostly by
god.
drunk guys in bars, but yes.
Never go. I always go to bars with long sleeves now every single time, because you can't. You'll get asked to arm wrestle every single time.
Oh, it's so weird because you'll go out to the mall or something like that, and where I normally used to get hit on, now the guys, instead of asking what my name is, they'll go, "So how much you binge?" I'm
Yep.
like, "Are you serious right now? I'm just getting a Gatorade from."
Just be like more than you.
Yeah, I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I really was just like, wow, that's amazing. But now probably my favorite question to ask, and the audience favorite question. I mean, we ask this every time as well, is that, when it comes to fit or clothes for fit women, I mean, fit guys have their own problems. Women have their own problems too when it comes to bodybuilders. I mean, I always say if you have big broad shoulders, dresses aren't your best friend. Jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time, because if you have a big lower body and a small waist, jeans are not designed for that. So what have been some ways that you have found that you're able to compensate for the fact that your clothing options can be very limited at times?
Okay, first off, high heels when you're 150 pounds, totally different from when you're 117. I used to be able to sprint in those bad boys. Now I'm like an hour, and I'm like, okay, I've got to get these off my feet. This is too much. So I have a whole closet full of heels that I am not wearing because I can't stay in them for too long. It's definitely created for much smaller women. That was my biggest travesty. And then having, you grow into stuff. So you just kind of have to shop for two different looks. It's like my competition look where, for about a month or two, I can wear this kind of stuff. And then, the other ones that you can wear other stuff instead of really beating yourself up and trying to fit into clothes that just you're not going to fit in at that point in time. And then you go, oh my God, I'm so bad. I'm big. I can't wait to prep. So you just kind of have to plan ahead so that there's not that mental game going on.
I always say, if someone ever came out with, like anything for like fit people, just a clothing brand that, like fit jeans or whatever, something like that. I mean, they would make so much money. So everyone who's listening, if you know someone or have something, get on it. Cause I have so many guests on here
Do
that would
it.
be willing to be your first customers. But before we get to the questionnaire part of the podcast, so you started your own business. What is it called? And what really inspired you to start it?
Well, so it's just me. I'm in a gym and I'm personal training, but this gym is a little bit unlike any other gym, right? So you have to really you need to have sales experience. Really, I didn't know everything that went into building a business, and it doesn't matter what business it is, whether you're an entrepreneur and you're doing designing web pages, or you're doing this or that. Really, just going in there and developing who you are as a trainer and doing that whole deal. I had no experience doing that, so it's tricky. You have your ups and downs. You learn this, you learn that, and it's like anything in life. But it's a really great experience. I also try to surround myself by like-minded people and try to emulate what other people before me have done. So like Dana Lynn Bailey, her website, I'll go to her website and I'll say, oh, this is really great how she has this. And I listen to how she speaks when she interviews and stuff like that. So you just try to emulate people that have had success doing what it is that you want to do. And that's just what I do in my everyday. And I pick up these little things here and there, and it's going really well. It's going really well.
What has been, other than the myth that, that women have where if they pick up one weight, they might gain a huge amount of muscle, what would you say is another huge myth that you deal with all the time with clients that you have to bust?
Oh, that they can go into the gym and work their butts off and get results. You're at the gym and you're doing that's like 20% of what you do. And so the number one myth that I have to bust is that there's no shortcuts. You have to put in the work, but more than that, you have to eat. So many women and even overweight men and women, they think that they could just, down their calories to, 500 or under 1,000 calories and lose weight. And that's not the way to do it. Your body goes into starvation mode. You just can't do that. So eating, all of my people, I have them eat. Every single one of them. They're like, what? I can eat this food? Yes, you can. And you can lose weight and you can be healthy doing it. Eating, food is 70% of what you do. 70% of what you do is eating. 20 when you go to the gym, and I'd say about 10% is that sleep, water, and supplements. But the biggest majority is what you do outside of the gym. So telling people they can eat, and that's not a bad thing to do. Hey, you can eat and lose weight. How would you like to do that? Everybody would like to do that, right? So it's just eating those certain foods and finding out, what works for you and what works for that person, and putting them on a meal plan.
Yeah, so many people just don't realize that that for a lot of the cases, you're going to be able to eat more than you normally ate, and you're still going to be able to lose weight. I always say if trainers were to lead with that, that's, if everyone knew that, I think so many people would be more into, working out and losing weight. And again, everyone go and give her a follow on Instagram. And if you're in the Atlanta area and you need someone with personal training, she's more than available and willing to help you out. So I'll leave a link to all of her stuff down below on that. But now we go on to our audience favorite, my personal favorite part of the podcast, a little questionnaire where we're going to ask Fallon here about a dozen or so health and fitness questions that we ask all of our healthy and fit guests. And we're going to see how her answers stack up to everyone else that we've had on the show. So for our first question, what is your go-to workout song at the moment?
Oh man. I'm old school. So Remember the Name is probably my biggest one.
That is a good one. For me, I gotta have my old school cheesy 80s music where we're talking like Whitesnake, Bon Jovi, where
Oh
the
yeah.
cheesier the better. But I have a problem. So I have a gym at home, which when I say gym, it's just basically like uh, a few barbells, a treadmill and a couple, a few things of equipment. I basically just call it, it's good enough to maintain a pump, basically. That's the only thing really that it can do. But when I go, so I work out there about half the time. So when I go to a normal gym, I'm one of those guys where I got to wait for the beat to drop. So if I'm like doing like a lat pull down, I might be like this for like 30 seconds. And I've had people come up to me and be like, hey, are you all right? Did you like pull out your back or something? And I'm like, oh, just waiting for the beat to drop. So I am known throughout my gym as the guy that waits for the beat to drop. But you know what? I carry it with pride. But now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be?
Dana Lynn
That's a
Bailey.
good one. Yep.
So Dana, if you're listening, Instagram me, call me. I will work out with you all day.
I've been trying to get her on, but to no avail. I mean, she so I went to school in Mankato in Minnesota, and she opened up a gym there, and it was the year after I graduated, so I wasn't able to go down. And her and her boyfriend were there too, so yeah, I wasn't able to go down there and meet him. But yeah, that would be totally awesome. But now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could train any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh, if I could train any celebrity. Oh man, I would want to train the girl that played Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Like, girl, put on some muscle. You're Captain Marvel.
That's one thing that I always hate is these celebrities where they're like, oh my God, getting ready for my movie role, and they're curling like 2-pound dumbbells, and the next thing you know, they're like pretty lean down. But it's like, if you're gonna play someone that's like a superhero, you can't just be like 90 pounds of just skinny, basically. It's like, yeah,
Man,
you gotta look the part. So
I'm all about, I think it's so time for them to have like for the swimsuit edition to have fit women. Like,
yeah.
really, like, women's physique, figure women, and it's time. It's time. They've had the plus size, they've had the college girls. Let's get some muscle women on there.
Muscular college girls. I got a solution for that then. No, but I always say, like, I'd always be afraid that, like, if they ever did like a She-Hulk movie or something like that, they probably just have like the muscles added on in like post-production where they
Yeah,
wouldn't even get like someone. So yeah, I mean they definitely need to change that. But now, what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
always need to have my almond milk. Almond milk. But watermelon. I love watermelon. I am a huge watermelon freak. Love watermelon. So that would be number one. Love watermelon. That's always. I wish it was year round.
Yeah, that is the first watermelon that we've heard on the podcast, so we always have a first for everything. I always say the most surprising answer for me was mustard because it's 0 calories, 0 fat. A lot of bodybuilders just douse whatever they have in mustard. So
Yes, and what's this big one? Walden Farms now because it's got 0 calorie everything. You use salad dressing and stuff.
yep, I always said, I'm a team ketchup guy. I don't know if I could do that, but just with these people's determination, I mean, that does not shock me at all. But now, out of all of your followers on Instagram, what would you say would be the biggest surprise that they'd find out about you if they met you in person?
Oh wow, that's a good one. Um, that Oh golly gee, but then I'm not a morning person.
Yep.
I'm not a morning person at all. I get up and I do morning cardio when I have to. I do that fasted cardio, but I am not a morning person.
Yeah.
So
You are preaching to the choir. I work nights, so I usually go to bed around like 2 or 3 in the morning, and then I get up at around like 10 o'clock. And yeah, if I have to get up any earlier than that, I'm a crabby. Like if I have people saying like, "Oh, I can do the podcast at like 8 or 9 in the morning," I was like, "Well, sorry."
yep,
No, at some other
yep,
time, it's like I'm
not a
not getting
morning
up there. I'm
person.
not getting up there. Yeah, so I totally understand that. But now, if someone were to come up to you and say, Fallon, we made a decision that you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding, and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you would like to see changed?
I would like to see more specific criteria and what they're looking for. I think that would be a huge or a big thing. So more separation in the divisions and the classes and stuff to see more unity in the judging.
Yeah.
I think, but it is all oh, I can't even think of the word. Golly jeepers. Anyway, yes, it's all subjective. So
That's the biggest thing that we hear too, is because like so many judges have so much different criteria for competitions where like one judge may want you to look like that, another one to look like that. So it's really hard, especially for people that we've had that have done, shows week after week, just to all of a sudden be like, oh, you want me to look like that now? It's kind of hard to change my body in like a whole week to really meet the judges' criteria. So I mean, that's probably a huge struggle that we've heard. But yeah, the division thing too. I mean, I cannot agree with more. But now we go on to the fun part of the questionnaire. So what was the last TV show that you binge watched?
oh, the last TV show I binge watched was Weeds.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And Dexter is what I'm currently binge watching. So
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one too. I watched that a few years ago, and yeah, that's really really awesome. But now, what is everyone has one? What is a guilty pleasure movie that you enjoy?
guilty pleasure movie. You know, one that I always go back to. I'm a helpless romantic, I think. So one that I always go back to is what is it
I
called?
swear
Like
to God, if you say The Notebook.
yes. Oh my gosh, I love that was it. That's it. I know. I'm so plain and so boring, but I think it's I'm such a romantic. It's so sweet.
My favorite part of that
Like,
movie is the ending. I laugh.
that's horrible.
Well, I don't get.
So what's yours?
No, to be completely
Dogging on mine. What's yours?
to be completely no, I'll tell you mine, but before to be completely about that, I do not get why people find that ending sad at all. They actually got to live a long and healthy life together, so I don't get what's sad about that. When people are like they got to die, people were like emotional about that. I was like, why? You should be happy. You should be like, oh, okay, yeah, good, cool. I don't get that, but for me, all of my guy friends, close your ears. Like I always say, Princess Bride is my guilty pleasure movie.
Shut your mouth. And you're dogging on my notebook, yo?
Hey,
What?
the Princess Bride has humor, okay? And it has Robin Wright in 1987, okay? So I have an out on that. No, but yeah, that's one of those movies where if it's on, I see it, I stop what I'm doing and I watch it. That is for sure my guilty pleasure movie. But now, if you were able to go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Oh man, that's a sweet one. That's a really good one. I would tell her to get out of her own way. Stay out of her own way because you have so much potential and so much greatness in you that you get in your head too much and be fearless because uh, that's what it's about. Be fearless and stay out of your own way. Definitely.
Absolutely. So if we were to talk to you also a year from now, where would you like to be at in your career? Where would you like to be at in bodybuilding? What are some goals that you have that if we were to talk a year from today, you would like to have achieved?
I would like to. I would like to be doing online training, have my own website up, have a good social media presence, and have a year from now, I'd like to be doing the Arnold or the Olympia, and standing on stage with the best of the best. That is totally my dream. I just I see it and I can't wait. But making opportunities and having my own business and being able to build and expand on that would be huge. So that's what I would like to be doing, and guest posing, all the good stuff that comes along with being an IFBB pro. So
So I never really understood like the whole guest posing thing. So do they just invite you and say like, "Hey, you just want to do a routine here?" And is it what do you do? Do the competitors or do the people that guest pose just use it for kind of like a practice? What is the whole reasoning behind guest posing?
well, I mean, it's a huge compliment to be invited to be a guest poster, right? Because then people, know who you are. But it's a way to get your name out there, to get people to know who you are, and then also just to experience, to go back, to amateur shows and stuff like that. And because a lot of people, I mean, when you first go to Olympia, nobody knows who you are, and you're at a table where you got maybe a couple of photos, and you're standing next to, Dexter Jackson, who has a line around the block, and you're like the new kid on the block. So definitely a great way to get your name out there. Awesome way to practice stage presence and stuff like that. But they also pay you, right?
Ooh,
So
yep,
that's always nice.
yep,
There's some good things, and you get to travel.
yeah.
I mean, gosh, being able to go every weekend and all over the United States would be great.
Oh, yeah.
Being able to see different parts of the country.
Yeah, that would be totally awesome. So again, you guys, I mean, go and give her a follow. I really, really appreciate having her on. And lastly, is there anyone that you would like to, or actually, the last two questions that I ask every guest on the podcast. So if someone were to walk up to you on the street and say, like, "Oh my God, you look amazing. I really want to get in shape and adapt a more healthy and fit lifestyle," what would be the best piece of advice you would give them in order to get that first step? Because for so many people, just taking that first step can be so hard for them.
I would say awesome. I salute you for knowing exactly what you want to go for and doing it, because that's the hugest thing, right? Is taking that first step, getting into the gym. Two is just to get yourself a trainer. I know it sounds like, oh, I'm spending all this money, but these are people that are going to educate you and help you along the way, because there's so many things that you have to learn between the time that so that you're not adding weight on top of it, on top of everything, on top of bad form or something like that. You want to keep yourself healthy. And food. Google, ask your trainer, find a dietitian and nutritionalist to help you with your food, because that is just huge. It's the biggest part of what you do. I mean, Weight Watchers touts that you can do nothing but change the way that you eat and lose 10 pounds in your first month. That's a powerful thing. That's a powerful statement. And they stand behind that. So that should give you an inclination as to how important it is. And so, yes, eat healthy.
Well, absolutely. And the nutrition thing is just so important. But now, lastly, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to?
I would. I would like to give a shout out to my coach at Mitch Priest. Thank you so much for being there with me from day one and supporting me and guiding me and educating me along the way. I'd like to give a shout out to my stepmom, my sister. Thank you so much for supporting me and believing in my dream and seeing the greatness in me. And of course, Lifetime Fitness. Thank you so much for having me as a trainer and giving me the opportunity to expand my knowledge and my base, and working with such wonderful clients. So, and thank you, of course, for having me on. This is amazing.
100%. I mean, I love having people come on and share their stories. And again, everyone go and give Fallon a follow. I'll leave a link to all of her stuff down below. I mean, just really, really inspiring to hear your story and have you on. And again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the Spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.